and welcome to the second episode of my podcast, The Temple of Astoria. In this episode, I want to dive into the symbolism of Sleeping Beauty, the prince, and the divine feminine. Nowadays, many women are disconnected from their true feminine essence. They are disconnected from their cycles, their bodies, their wisdom, and their intuition. Why am I using the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale? Well, because when Aurora is asleep, everything sleeps with her. And with that analogy, we can see that when the feminine is disrupted, the whole world is impacted. When she wakes, everything wakes with her. Flowers bloom, grass grows, and birds sing again. And that's because she is the source of life. She is the water from which everything is born. Just like Demeter in the Persephone myth is overcome by grief and creates winter, she stops everything from growing. When the feminine is hurt, is disrupted, the whole world pays for it. And I think that's what's happening right now. We are starting to see signs of the feminine awakening because it's been asleep for so long. So I think that's why it's relevant to speak about this topic right now. The feminine essence is asleep in most women nowadays. And how does that look? Control, authoritativeness, numbness, anxiety, lack of creativity, difficulty to feel sensual or pleasure, difficulty opening, giving. It could be over people pleasing or actually the opposite, being very controlling and selfish. That's the two sides of the unhealthy feminine energy. And these women, disconnected from their own essence, their own wisdom, their own body, their own nature, they live a life that is very gray, that lacks color, lacks intensity, lacks excitement, lacks passion. It's a stale life. It's a gray life. The feminine inside of them is sleeping. So of course nothing can grow because the source has been cut. The source is blocked. And so what I want to talk about in this podcast episode is how a woman can create unconsciously situations to awaken that divine feminine energy, that wisdom that we have inherited from our ancestors from the beginning of time, that we have even inherited from the feminine forces of the universe. And we cannot do that on our own, actually. We need the help of the masculine. That is where my theory comes in, that all women actually need a Prince Charming, but not in the way that you think. I'm not talking about women believing in true love and just pining over someone forever and just never letting go and focusing on love. It's actually quite the opposite. When a woman is faced with a man in the physical sense, he will awaken something in her. He will awaken her masculine energy, the masculine process in her head, in her mind. And no matter how much women want to fight it, it is the masculine that awakens them. He, either a real man or the essence of the masculine, he is the one awakening her. He is the one that makes life stir in her veins again. See, the masculine is a bridge to herself. He brings contrast and movements so that she can see clearly again, not through him, but by finally recognizing her own sight and her own voice. He is the one who brings her back to life with his own desire to see her bloom, his devotion, his patience, and sometimes his willingness to prove he is strong enough and that it deserves her to open to him. So the relationship doesn't even have to be good. It's just what he awakens in her. And that doesn't mean that he is meant to stay in her life. But the initiation he brings is truly life-changing if the woman is ready to receive it. When a woman who is asleep to her own gifts, her own essence, is willing to accept the kiss of true love, then she awakens and becomes a queen. That is what happens in the fairy tale. Once she awakens, she gets married and then she becomes the queen and everything starts to flow again. The kingdom grows, the kingdom is healthy because she has united her feminine and masculine energy through the sacred marriage. When a woman accepts this initiation, she becomes the queen of her own kingdom, her own life. She becomes sovereign and she never doubts herself anymore. She finally recognizes that her value is inherent to her just being alive. And so her life blooms now because she doesn't need validation from men, she doesn't need validation from women. She knows who she is, she knows how to love herself. Because what I was talking about was not necessarily the kiss of true love from someone else, but the kiss of true love from herself. The archetype of the prince can have a lot of other significant roles, but this is the one I'm choosing to focus on. Here, he can be associated with the animus, the good animus of the woman. The animus is the masculine principle in a woman's psyche. The animus, here as the prince, will serve to cut through all the old beliefs and patterns and emotions that were left to grow unchecked in the unconscious. He will then, once he is in the unconscious, trying to find her again, he will fight the dragon of hidden potential, and he will finally release and free the treasures which are the gifts, the talents, the potential of this woman. And he will fight to the death, and his own death. That's how far he is willing to go to awaken the woman he serves. And again, I am talking about a principle inside a woman's psyche. So actually, all of this is the woman doing unconsciously. I'm just describing it in a very beautiful way through a fairy tale, because I think that's amazing to be able to realize that all the stories we've been told are actually psychological mechanisms. And so that's the role of the man here, is to awaken the good animus of the woman or the negative one. It depends on where the woman is. And if she is ready for a new initiation, she will definitely come out with more wisdom and discernment from this relationship or this encounter. I want to precise here that I am talking about a romantic relationship, but this can apply to any types of relationships. It can also apply with public figures, and we see this a lot these days, with a lot of women being triggered into their negative animus because of male public figures. As for the positive animus, it's not the man that is doing the work. It is just by his presence, he will awaken a process inside of the woman. And the process is also independent of the woman. It just depends on if she's ready to receive the new initiation. Whether the relationship is good or not, if she is in a good place, she will be called to choose herself again and again. And if she does, that is where she will finally graduate this initiation. She will find a new sense of purpose. She will connect to her essence more deeply. And she will also become more confident and more assertive. And that is because she will have merged or alchemized her good animus. And that is what I was talking about earlier, the sacred marriage. because she integrated the helpful masculine principle, the prince, which is a very good um, heroic archetype. It can also have negative sides, of course, but if we integrate the positive sides, it's good because something really alchemized here. The princess, the feminine, was asleep, and the prince did all the work to cut through everything and just awaken her, and then they are united, aligned, and everything around them can grow in a healthy manner and becomes fertile in all the sense of the term. However, if this woman is too immature or just not ready, she might identify with her negative animus. And that will result in either way, she will feel unworthy and she will be reminded, because what's happening is that when a woman is faced with a man, any type of man, she gets a mirror to how she thinks about herself. Does she love herself? Does she respect herself? Does she think she has value? And has she integrated how much she's valuable? And so if a woman doesn't really value herself, but she is ready to start, she may be able to take this initiation from being with a man. She is with him, he triggers her, and she recognizes that she lacks self-worth, self-esteem, self-love, and she, like I said, does the process to awaken everything. Then she will grow and she will find that she really changed from that encounter. However, if she's not ready, she will have a painful trigger because she will just be encountering how much she doesn't like herself. And instead of going inside and trying to find a solution, she will blame the outside man. And like I told you, the dark animus, the negative animus, when he is in control, he wants to destroy the woman. So that can go, that can be through self-hatred, self-criticism, and constant, nitpicking. And so if she's already doing that inside of herself and she encounters a man, she will project onto him what she's doing to herself. And so she will find ground to criticize this man. And that just leads to a vicious cycle where this type of woman is people pleasing, but at the same time, she's never satisfied with herself or with men. And she finds all the problems in men. That is the problem of our society right now, is that through the guise of social justice, we hate on each other for the wrong reasons without seeing how much we are projecting of what is inside of us. And of course we have to discuss these things, but we don't have to fight. And of course there is injustice, but we have to recognize how much we're projecting onto a situation without accusing the other person too quickly. What a woman thinks about a man, especially a man she considers to be problematic or dangerous, is simply a projection of her own dark animus. She is treating herself the way she criticizes outside. Because a woman who is balanced inside of her, who has alchemized the masculine and the feminine, is not constantly seeing injustice. She recognizes that it exists. She recognizes that pain and suffering are part of life and that there are good and bad, and people are just not just black and white. We need to recognize that what we perceive to be bad in other people is exactly what we are judging right now inside of us. That is also what we can see in Maleficent, the evil fairy, the one who is bitter and petty about not being invited. We don't know the reasons of why she was not invited. Of course, they made a movie now, but the reasons are not especially known as to why she's been rejected from society. But she is the representation of a woman that is identified with her dark or negative animus. She is controlled by the masculine principle in a negative way. And she will try to get revenge, she will try to call out social injustice, of course. But she does it in a way that's very egoistical and very detrimental to everyone and especially herself, because she is digging the trenches even deeper for herself to being rejected. And I don't know what the solution is in the scenario of Sleeping Beauty, but for a woman who is stuck in this place of always feeling victimized, always feeling like she is being pushed back, like she is being insulted, she's being triggered, she needs to recognize that it is inside of her that she is doing this and she is attracting alike experiences. For the longest time, I was dealing with bullying, especially in school, even after school. Even after leaving school, I experienced some bullying in the workplace. And it was not until I realized how much I was bullying myself, how much the dark animus had taken space inside of me. And that's only when I started to change how I spoke to myself, how I started to view the positive, masculine, helpful archetype inside of me, the hero, and in a sort of way the hero, the yeah, the prince. For me, it's associated with samurais. I don't know why, because there is this honor, there is this respect, there is the code. And that is something I put myself through, that is something I cultivated in myself. And the more I cultivated this in me, the more it reverberated everywhere inside of my life. It just, my life reflects what I think about myself, and what I think about myself is what I think about the world. So when they say love your neighbor as yourself, it's because you have to love yourself in a great way first. Focus on yourself, love yourself, and then you will be able to love everyone. And so that's why I think it's very important to have these kinds of conversation, because I see a lot of people just blaming men in general, blaming the masculine for everything, and the feminine is just a victim, a forever victim. And I don't think that's true, because when we see just how powerful the feminine is, I'm struggling to understand how would the feminine be victimized in this way. How would the feminine let herself be victimized in this way when we know how powerful she is? I'm not saying there is no injustice, of course there is. However, we have to understand that there are seasons. There are seasons in life, and there are reasons for things to be the way they are. And not everything is an injustice. Sometimes we have to look inside ourselves and also see we are carrying the injustice wound, and that's why we keep seeing injustice everywhere. When we start to detach from this type of thinking, the whole world shifts, because we don't need to see everything through the injustice lens. And then we understand that we can be more detached about everything. And we are not the ones to decide what is wrong, what is right. Of course, there is suffering and there is happiness. But why are we always avoiding everything? We have to face every part of ourselves. And I see a lot of emphasis on shadow work. and doing dark feminine awakenings. But what is dark feminine? Is dark femininity really just about being very sensual and attractive and wearing black and having long red nails? Or is it about looking at our own shame, at our own bad ways, at our own narcissism, at our own destructive ways, and how we just corrupt our own vision of life by projecting our wounds everywhere? I think that's a matter of discussion, and I would be very interested in knowing what you think about this. And of course, I am open to discussion, and I would like to talk about this more in the future. Tell me what you thought in the comments, and I will see you in the next episode.